Hello, everyone. Hello. Happy day to you.
What's up, Al?
Hey, Jay.
What's up? Hey, Dave. What's up? What's good? I'm Jhall. I'm representing AURN online, and I would not hide my excitement because it's all about HBCUs, and I'm a proud Howard Bison, unapologetic, and that's how I'm stunting because it's 2020, and it's very few things I'm done for that. So, but I am really excited about this discussion, Black Film School Roundtable, Filmmakers, and the HBCU Connect. It's something that's powerful that I feel like that's been going on lately about being Black and our voices and our images and what we've been creating. And we need to highlight more people who are at the front lines that are making it a point to be unapologetically Black in the culture and to not even make any excuses. And what I liked about, especially Merawi Residue was probably my favorite film in 2020, was just how it was on some, it was just on some, hey, yo, if you don't know, you need to go do your research. We're not here to over-explain everything to you. And I've been seeing that amongst a lot of content creators of Black voices all together. So I just want to take a moment to actually give a shout out to that. First, yeah, no doubt. I like for everyone, if they could, and Ogechi, I'd like to start with you. If you can just tell everyone out in the digital world and us at this panel what you've been doing and what you are doing now.
Hi, my name is Ogechi Chieke. I'm an editor by trade and, Final Cut Pro, Premiere, and animator, video artist. But right now I actually teach at a HBCU called Bowie State. So I deal with HBCU students quite often. And, coming from HBCU, I understand. But when I'm not doing that, I do a film festival called Sabira Cole Film Festival, and it's in honor of my deceased aunt. And we just hosted an international juried competition. We got submissions from 22 countries all over the world. Films that highlight, indigenous communities all over the world within the diaspora. Films that give us the opportunity to determine our own image and control our narrative. And our website is sabirafilmfest.org.
Thank you. You say you're in Pittsburgh right now as we speak, right?
Yes. But our film festival's online. Because of COVID, we were never going to be able to do events anyway, so anybody can attend. It's free, so that's what we do.
And we was talking offline, and you were saying how your whole family is activists.
Yeah, I'm blessed because.
I said, can you touch on that a little second and how it affects you when it comes to filmmaking?
Yes, I'm blessed. So my family that I came into is like just activists and people who are community minded. So I've been raised by my community. I know how to represent my community. I know how to connect with my community. So I have a lot of opportunities to do that, especially as an artist, through my family. And that's how I even got involved with the film festival business at all, because my aunt Sabira, who the film festival is named after, did a African diaspora film festival for 11 years. And it was a year-round festival, like a film series in Pittsburgh. So she died suddenly in February, and then I took over the organization. We renamed it as Sabira Cole Film Festival. And I run this with my family. So my family members are involved with this.
I love hearing about that. I really do. I love hearing about that. Merawi, saying to you, sir, if you could just reintroduce yourself, let them know what you've been doing and what you do now.
Yeah, Merawi Gerima, writer and director of the film Residue. I'm from DC, originally, but just kind of concerned with HBCUs. My pops taught at Howard University for about 40 years. So my mom taught there too for a little bit. She actually went there as well. And so, yeah, HBCUs kind of, all up in the, kind of the family kind of story. And, for undergrad, I ended up going to FAMU for 2 years and transferred up to Howard, So, and then growing up in, DC, Chocolate City, I was just kind of spoiled, And actually USC Film School for grad school was like the first time I went to like a white institution, you know what I mean? So I had a hard time acclimating to that environment, you know, because when you go to HBCUs, you know, it's undeniable just kind of being surrounded by, you know, Black excellence all the time, and, you know, not having to deal with the bullshit, you know what I mean? And so it was a new experience, but it's one that made me really cherish the HBCU experience, you know, through and through.
Yeah, that's a lot of Blackness to soak up. Growing up in DC, when DC was a popular city, going to FAM, and then coming back to get a double dose of chocolate at Howard.
Right.
And then you go to UFC, which is soda like mayonnaise. Like, what is that about?
I didn't know what was. I was like, what planet am I on? Yo, like, who does this? Y'all are wilding. But yeah, man. Even the Black folks out there, you know what I mean? Like, you could tell the ones who have gone to HBCU or at least had grown up in like a Black city, and then you could tell the ones that was kind of lost, you know, thinking that like, you know what I mean, trying to find community amongst, you know, incredible whiteness, you know, and really struggling.
That's real. That's real. David, I know you had went out for a second, but we were just introducing ourselves about saying what is it we've been doing and what is it that we do now. So if you can just take that time for a second.
Yeah, so the last few years I've been traveling the States. I've pretty much just been hitting the cities with the highest Black population percentage, doing like a photo video documentation of our day and age, just like a little time capsule for where we are in this moment. You know, I have to agree with you that Residue was one of those top films for the year, for sure. And
thank you, man.
Yeah, the journal was thorough, definitely thorough. But like being in DC, going to Howard, right? My experience here, just looking around, it was like, okay, it's been 4 Black Democratic mayors, you know, after Marion Barry. How does Chocolate City then get whitewashed, right? So it's kind of like Residue, but from a different angle of the aspect, right? So looking at DC, being from Chicago, I just started traveling around in different cities, and so far I've hit 16 to 17 cities, and it's pretty much the same situation everywhere, you know. So it's just been kind of going around the States, documenting just kind of where we are in the midst of these times, and just, you know, just the joyous celebrations and stuff that we find ourselves in, missing moments.
Good. Dave, I want to stay with you for a second, and this is going to be for everyone else also, but Dave, you first. How did your relationship with, you know, HBCU that you're most connected to, which is Howard, because, you know, you and I are both Bison. That's a little brag right there. How did it contribute? Right.
Ogechi soon.
That's just where we at right now. That's just where we at. But how did going to Howard connect you to filmmaking? Your filmmaking journey?
Yeah, so for me, Howard, it was kind of interesting. Like, I didn't have any intention of necessarily going into film, going to Howard, even really working on film too much necessarily at Howard. But while I was there, I did do a program with the National Visionary Leadership Program. And it was pretty much just like about documenting life, documenting elders that have made a difference in our case, in the DC community, but just in general. So that was something that I ended up picking up while I was at Howard. But also, you know, I got into film in a certain kind of way, just documenting like what I wanted to do, like just looking at my senior year in high school. And then that transferred over into being at Howard, just documenting just life as it was happening at the time.
Okay. Chieke, what about you? How does it connect to your filmmaking journey?
That is a great question because it totally connects. I was always an artist, even as a kid. So I think by high school, I had gotten into photography. I got exposed to Photoshop at a very young age, also through this after-school arts program that was totally free, that was founded by Bill Strickland in Pittsburgh called Manchester Craftsman's Guild. So the executive director was this guy, Josh Green. He was a ceramicist. And this place was like heaven for me, you know, as a young artist. So when you could go there and they would have like artist workshops come through, and Lynn Marshall, Lena Meyer, she did like photoresist on fabric, and, you know, just any little, you know, all the art supplies were just free. I used to cut school to go to this place. I would just be in the dark room. So I already had done, you know, like 4 years of like serious darkroom photography. I was having art shows with adults when I was like 15 in galleries around my city. So by the time I went to Howard, I actually went to Howard for anthropology because I wanted to be on some diaspora, like, trying to explain things to people. I woke up real quick and then I went to fine arts. I woke up after about a semester and I said, let me go. I'm not supposed to be here. Let me go to fine arts. That's when I went to fine arts. Winston Kennedy was able to waive off a year because of all the stuff I had done in high school. So that's how I was able to get into the fine arts. I went to the fine arts and I wanted to do like, more than what I had already been doing. I had already had a whole lifetime of photography almost. So I was trying to get into digital photography, stuff like that. There's so many aspects to this story. Winston Kennedy, we all know he was married to Deborah Willis. So then I used to work at the Smithsonian. That's what I'm saying. It was like a little treasure hunt of mentorship. So then that's how I got into the electronic studio department because that was the best fit for me at the time, which was our computer arts department with Dr. Lee, Sam Holmes, and Tueldros Melkeshua, who's my boss now at Bowie State.
Oh, that's tight. That's tight.
It's crazy. That's what I'm saying. It's beautiful. It's crazy, but it's beautiful. So then I was just in electronic studio art and just being a nerd. And like, we just had a culture, just the other students. Everybody was an artist and had something they wanted to share and show. It was just so colorful. And you could learn from anybody and teach me how to do this. And I worked at the computer lab. So you asked, how did I get to film? I had started, experimenting by myself with the equipment that was from there. And it's crazy. It ended up influencing even my little sister, because at the time I would go to my dad's house and take the cameras from Howard over there. And then my sister ended up becoming a filmmaker and my brother's an actor. The little ones, they're grown now. They're like 25. So that's what I'm saying, like Howard. Then I had one of my closest friends, Kasha. She is in product now, but at the time she had been in graphic design with, I can't remember the lady's name, but there was this one class by an adjunct named Michael Platt. And she's like, you got to take this class. You got to take this class. You got to take this class. Leave me alone. You got to take this class. You got to take. Okay, I take the class. We're in the print studio. And then he takes us to his house. And it's like a whole other world. You've never seen so much art in your life. Just all over the place. And he's got printers. And it was just, this is all before I even went to film. So Michael Platt, that's a whole, that's one of my great friends. I consider him a family member. Rest in peace. This year was crazy. So how did it happen? I worked in the computer lab and I was just friends with people. I was in, like I said, I've been an artist, like drawing, painting, sculpture, just every little thing I could get my hands on. A friend of mine, who's still my friend from the film school, they were doing something. I worked in the computer lab, but everyone would be there. You see what I'm saying? So they were working on something and somebody walked off. Somebody walked off the gig. It was like a Comcast commercial for DC. And whoever was supposed to do the editing walked off. And then I became an editor. I was just standing by. It's so funny. It's so funny. And then you look back 15 years later and that's your life.
It'd be those small little moments, which is something, going to a HBCU, like you always make ice cream out of collapse. It's like whatever little small thing happens, all of a sudden it become your road. And that I know what you're talking about, because in the iLab, there was always 1,000,001 things going on, and you can be a part of something. You wasn't originally. Now, are you originally from Pittsburgh, or are you just there now?
I'm from Pittsburgh. I worked in the human ecology lab. I would be at the iLab just to socialize. I worked at human ecology, where nobody goes there.
I would just ask that real quick, because I know, the late, great August Wilson, all of his plays, and he based it in Pittsburgh. Did that have like an influence on you also in your journey?
No, not really. I'm just like, I lived in all those neighborhoods. I could tell you all those places. Pittsburgh, though, I think personally it's crazy that our city really isn't on the map more like that, because you know, that's what I would hope to contribute, you know, with my time span of life that's left. Like, at least, you know, let people know what Pittsburgh is and what it was, because there's so much hub of Black art here. But it's like, I feel like as a community, we don't celebrate our stuff. We're always so on to the next thing. We always on to the next trend. Like, but if we were like New York City, it would be like going to Harlem. If you could come and see the locations here, like, it's really nothing to see. But if you knew what happened here, like, even just not far from me, there's this place called, it's a landmark called Negro Opera House. I've walked past it my whole life. You just think, oh, what is it? It's a big mansion, but it was Woogie Harris' house, who's the father to Teenie Harris, the photographer, and that's where all the performers would stay because it was segregation. Duke Ellington, Lena Horne, they could, well, some of those, Lena Horne was from here, but I'm just saying, some of those people that were visiting, the musicians, couldn't be here. But there's so much history of music. George Benson, Billy Strayhorn, Lena Horne, Mary Lou Williams, all those people from Pittsburgh. People just don't rep Pittsburgh for whatever reason. But like, I'm telling you, like, if we were like New York, we would have little Japanese people running through here with cameras. If I was the mayor, if I was running things, that's how it would be. Like, we would celebrate our history more and educate people to what it is.
That's real. That's real. I can appreciate that. Merawi, what about you? Your connection with, you went to 2 HBCUs. How did it contribute to your filmmaking journey?
I mean, well, you know, at FAM, I'm at Howard. I really wasn't interested in film. I was in fine arts too. I was doing graphic design at Howard, and I think I was just kind of like, you know, trying everything else, you know, because coming out like a filmmaker household, you know, I was like, well, let me see what else is out there, you know. But I'll say that, like, when I graduated, you know, from studying graphic design, the one thing I did know is that I didn't want to do graphic design, you know. Although, you know, it was enjoyable, I just felt that the hustle of, like, you know, working with clients and stuff was, you know, it wasn't really appealing to me, you know what I mean? And so that's when I decided to go to film school, or, you know, save up some money and, like, try and, you know, kind of embark on that journey or whatever. But actually, you know, I would say that, like, I really didn't come into my own as a filmmaker until I started really activating those past things which I had studied, you know, at Howard and FAMU, you know, from photography to drawing to painting, to actually I was doing a little jazz studies at FAMU, playing guitar, you know what I'm saying, and a little bit of 3D design as well, you know. And I think that, like, all those little things that I had tried out, you know, once I learned how to bring them to fruition in a filmic sense, then I really started to, like, really you know, kind of come alive, you know what I mean, as a filmmaker with my own kind of, you know, approach. So I think the experience, you know, I mean, that's just in a technical sense, you know. Of course, socially speaking, like, you know, there's no comparison, you know. Like, I think all Black people have to experience, you know, for some large chunk of their lives, being surrounded by Black people, you know what I mean. I think it's absolutely critical. And so I think the lessons that I learned, you know, you talking about how, you know, Residue and other, you know, other Black folks nowadays are just, like, you know, unapologetically Black, you know, I think that's critical, you know. And I think that is a sign of, you know, kind of a whole, you know, several generations in, you know, of people steeped in places like Howard and FAM and, you know, all that kind of stuff, now coming of age and, you know, expressing themselves. And I think that, like, that type of militant, you know, self-expression is really, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's really at the heart of everything good that we're seeing in 2020. You know what I mean? We ain't seen much, but in terms of good, but, like, I mean, we have actually, you know, if we think about, like, the uprising, for example. To me, the uprising was, like, you know, it just escalated this, you know, kind of, you know, history of, like, Black struggle in America to, like, a whole nother level, you know what I mean, in terms of, like, things that are suddenly possible, you know, within the public, you know, imagination. You know, and when I say public, I mean, like, young Black folks. Like, okay, how do we fight back? And, like, suddenly, you know, the rupture that we witnessed, you know, there's so many things that we can't go back to now. You know what I mean? Like, there's only forward is really the only way that we can go. And by forward, I mean just kind of, you know, these increasing intensifications of the ways that we resist, you know, through our art and, you know, through, you know, kind of collective action and stuff like that. So, I see all those things as connected to, you know, what all of our kind of, you know, ancestors have been fighting to do, and HBCUs has been critical to that kind of, you know, that type of that kind of, you know, engineered social, you know, moment, you know, in history, you know, because it's like that's what they were trying to do, you know what I mean? Create a space for like Black education, you know, where like resistance and other things could be, you know, freely taught and studied and explored. You know, it was like this overall project of improving our station in this country, you know, and I just think that we're seeing the fruits of it, you know, in so many ways.
Yeah, I happened to come to DC right when DC was still, when I attended Howard, it was still Chocolate City, but it started changing, you know, right after that. If you got there in that 01, after 01, you started, you saw it, and then you literally saw the moving boxes in that place, right? So when I got into Howard, it was one way, and then when I was coming out, it was another. Because me and my friends, we had a house on First in Florida. That environment was totally different. And Ogechi, you laughing because you know where that area is, because it was a real area, right? And in the film Residue,
I was on First Street too. I was on First and
right. And so in
I said on First and Bryant, yeah.
That's tight. I mean, everybody was right. That whole little
everybody was
corridor.
right there.
Yeah,
but that was the part that stood out to me when I was watching Residue, because it was filmed as if it was almost like a doc, although it was a fictional story. Well, you know, it was. I mean, using the word fictional real loosely, but to see the white people that I can't help but to say you intentionally didn't kind of show their faces, but their presence was there. And when you were just speaking about how the environment and what it made up, like the one scene where the dog is about to just go ahead and use the bathroom, I mean, you know, take a dump right there on the grass, I instantly thought about Howard when the people were sitting there walking their dogs and that clip came out. What would you say was some of the catalysts of the spaces surrounding the community, the HBCU, that kind of contributes to that kind of filmmaking?
Let me tell you a story. There was this, so, you know, my family had this bookstore, Sankofa Video Books, right across the street from Howard University, and a cafe. And right next to us is Fairmont Street. And there was this white woman that moved into Fairmont. And I think she's like on that block, or certainly the loudest one. There was a mural. I don't know if y'all remember it. It was like Marion Barry and like some other Black leaders that like some young Black youth had painted. You know what I mean? Just like a little memorial kind of a thing. And like one of her first demands, you know what I'm saying, fresh new neighbor in this area, was that she actually, Howard owned, you know, they owned that lot, and it was on the side of that lot. She went to them and she said, you know, this doesn't feel inclusive, you know, and I feel that my son will be alienated coming outside the house every day and just seeing only Black people, you know, kind of in this mural. And it kicked off a whole thing, you know, like a whole bunch of like, you know, town halls and like all this stuff. Like everybody kind of weighed in on it because, you know, gentrification, it was already in play, but it still felt fresh and something that you could, you know, kind of have a voice in or something, I guess. I don't know. Back and forth, finally Howard painted over the mural. And so like for me, witnessing that, you know, it's still, you know, teenage years or early 20s or whatever, you know, it was critical for me to witness, because I still, you know, I went to Howard, you know, I hold it in high esteem in terms of the people that it put me around, you know, but at the same time, at that moment made it very clear, you know, kind of who had the power in these situations, you know what I mean? Who even Howard answers to, you know, and how much power that Howard itself as an institution does not have. And so if you go there now, you'll see Howard selling off literally everything they own in that area, you know what I mean? Literally selling the most historic institution bit by bit, you know what I mean? And in many ways, what can they do? You know, most of their money comes from, you know, the U.S. government, the feds, you know what I mean? And outside of that, how do they make it back? And, you know, I think that like, we don't have to get into like, you know, them, you know, specifically beyond that, but just to say that like, for me, it complicated the whole issue, you know what I mean? It really complicated the whole matter. And I think that like, it was important for me to to document this because, you know, at the end of the day, man, like we're suffering from a lot of decisions that white people are making, certainly, but also black people, you know what I mean? And the city council, you know, like these things cannot happen without, you know, elected officials, you know, inviting this type of change into the city, you know what I mean? Without them, you know, intentionally engineering this type of change, you know, because the whole goal at the end of the day is to broaden the tax base, bringing people with more money into the city, you know, so they can get more taxes out of them. And black people, as you know, we ain't got much, you know what I'm saying? As a tax base, we're not too strong. So of course their attention is on white folks with money, you know what I mean? And Hill has money. And yeah, from the mayor down to many people, you know, like city council, like it was all very illuminating being able to be in the city, you know, such a small city and kind of see these things kind of happen and, you know, kind of play out around me in ways that I couldn't, you know, articulate at the time. You know, Residue was really just an emotional kind of knee-jerk response. And it was the process of making it that I've been able to educate myself to the point that you hear me now, you know, I've been able to describe these things to you. But yeah, man, you know, I just feel like DC in many ways is the epicenter of like, you know, it's the perfect microcosm, you know, of like black struggle in the United States, you know, DC, Howard, and all these things that are happening there.
Same question for you, Dave. When you think about the catalysts and the spaces surrounding HBCUs, what comes to your mind when it comes to filmmaking and the effects that it has on it?
I mean, I think he just hit it on the head. The university kind of sold off, seeing what could have been right from our institutions versus what is right. I think it's a real a thing to grapple with, and that's one of the things that put me on the hunt for this project. You know, and just in terms of like, you know, DC being a microcosm of what's happening in the nation, man. Like especially amongst black folks, is real. You know, and to see it. Like, you know, I feel like I experienced residue without having moved, right? Like I went from what I described, like living on the south side of Chicago, it's like living on the north side of Chicago, like overnight. And I didn't even switch neighborhoods, you know what I'm saying? Like I didn't switch buildings, no nothing. You know, next thing you know, there's new neighbors, people popping in. You're like, oh, who is this? What's going on? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's like, I ain't even been gone, but I'm right here and I'm seeing this whole different trend, you know? So
right
like looking
under your nose.
Yo, it's crazy how it happens. You know what I'm saying? And like watching it happen slowly but surely in other cities that don't have the same muscle that they have in DC to be able to push stuff through city council, or they might not have the straight fair funding coming in, right? Like in different places, it's going to take different hands are getting greased, so it takes longer. Some certain areas might be getting developed while other ones are kind of laid to waste, you know. But what's interesting, like with Howard specifically, I can't speak on the other HBCUs, but just like looking at the way colleges have played a hand in gentrification nationally, right? Mm-hmm. If you look at Philly with like, if you hit Temple, UPenn, you could hit Chicago, University of Chicago, LA, UCLA, USC, like the way that USC, yeah, you know, like they're bullying up on the whole neighborhood, you know, whereas, you know, from Howard's perspective, or, you know, and it could be, you know, other HBCUs in that same vein, you know, it's like, we're giving up what it was that we had. So for me, like getting out on this project, it was like, well, where are we? How do we get here? And what are possibilities for the future?
Ogechi, this will go to you also. This next question, what initiatives exist on HBCU campuses or outside of HBCU campuses that are filmmaking efforts for HBCU students that you know of?
You know, at least on where I'm at right now, Bowie State, we bombard them with internships, opportunities to speak to, you know, Netflix, speak to producers, do portfolio reviews. You know, I get those things in my inbox. I forward them to my students. Some of my students take advantage of them. Some of them don't. When I was at Howard, you know, I was not in the film department, but I just was, you know, worked in the computer lab and I was friendly and I was good at what I did, graphics at the time. And I forgot I did work with Brad Young too. I did like a movie cover for him. So at the time, I'm not really sure what it was at Howard when I was there, but I do remember Merawi Gerima being a presence on campus and like a father figure to a lot of the students and a mentor to a lot of the students. I really don't know. I wasn't in communications. I mean, I think Bill Duke was there too, but yeah, it's really the faculty. I think honestly, it's the faculty and giving those students opportunities to work with them and giving them guidance. Like I went to hear Merawi speak on campus, and I think I took notes on it, but what he said stuck with me like my entire life, my entire time when I was in California, being an editor, like all of that. Like, you know, that's, you know, another topic for another time. But yeah, I think it has to do with the faculty going above and beyond for the students, but the love that they have for the youth. Reaching back. I think it's a little bit different. You know, I don't know, like I said, I got my master's at School of Visual Art, and I'm still, you know, in touch with my instructors that I had there. But it's just, I can't explain it. It was just like a more type of family feeling. And I try to give that to my students. I try to listen to them, talk to them, and, you know, help them write their little recommendations and what have you. But really, for me, my experience, HBC experience that I remember, and even just to piggyback you guys' last question, you know, I felt like I was just in a bubble there. Like I never really thought that much about the community, but I wasn't from DC. You know, I really just kind of stayed in that bubble. And for me, that's helped me. So that's my answer.
Merawi, what you say? Is there any initiatives inside HBCU campuses or outside that are helping supporting filmmakers, HBCU students that you could think of?
To be honest, I don't know. I know, you know, the film school is pretty active, and it's like one of the few Black schools with a film school, period. You know what I mean? It's the first and one of the few still to this day. So I think in and of itself, the film school is an important one. You know, like Ogechi mentioned, Bradford Young. You know what I mean? Like, I think Howard has kind of created, you know, has historically been an environment which generated a lot of kind of, you know, a lot of creators in the world of film. Outside of that, you know, I think, you know, I don't know, man. You know, I had an interesting experience when we was filming Residue where, like, you know, the Howard University pool of filmmakers was critical to our ability to even, like, get crew, you know what I mean? And, like, you know, get people to, like, come help us to make this project. And the only other school or, like, pool of, like, you know, like, talented, like, grips, gaffers, you know, and, like, camera assistants that we could kind of reach out to was, you know, near, you know, Towson, which is near Baltimore, you know what I mean? What I noticed though was that, like, the kind of magnitude of the project that we were bringing was like a rare opportunity. Like everybody was, you know, I think that people were excited to, like, get in on, you know, because feature films don't come that way in DC too often, you know what I mean? So if there's anything I can say is that, like, I think that, like, hopefully Residue is not the last film that, like, comes through the area, that swings through the area and relies on, like, community members and college students to, like, you know, get it done. Because, you know, I think that, like, just judging by my experience, you know, the area is kind of prime, you know, it's prime to be like a kind of, to have its own film culture, you know what I mean? It's, you know, it's our own kind of like a sustainable film culture in the area, you know, between Sankofa, Howard, Towson, you know, and like the other institutions in the area. I think that it could be, you know what I mean? Like, it just seems like it's just ready for many products to be kind of coming through and kind of, yeah.
Dave, good to have you back. You know any initiatives that help HBCU filmmaking outside or in?
I know for a few years, it's this Asha Kamali. She was doing, she's a Howard alum. She had been, she's been doing some stuff with Brown Paper Dolls and a few other productions. But she had an initiative to where she was bringing folks back every year during homecoming, and just getting like a lot of film folks together to discuss, you know, how they made it in the industry, showing folks different avenues, different routes you can take within the industry. I think she had it going for maybe like somewhere about 5 years, maybe a little bit more. But then I don't know what happened exactly with the university or with the situation there, but kind of shut down. But that's one thing I know that was going on. That was pretty dope. I can't think of any necessarily that are going on at HBCUs other than that. But I think the HBCU network is just a large and vast network to where even though certain stuff might not be like official amongst universities, like it's official on the underground there, and the cats are linking in amongst the different schools and whatnot.
Now, Ogechi, we see that there's been another, I like to call them black spikes, where there's like an interest in black culture, you know, and we seem to be on that right now. And you take, for example, Lena Waithe, who has Filmmakers Productions. Do you see anybody else that's making that connection in filmmaking of highlighting HBCUs and their creativity?
I honestly don't know anybody offhand. Like there possibly could be, but I just might not be aware of it.
Oh, that's real. Mari, what about you? You know any?
To be honest, I'm also not tuned in like that. I think I'm sure every black, you know, filmmaker out there who's kind of achieved a certain level, who came out of HBCUs, you know, I think it's almost programmed into us to kind of create those opportunities. So, you know, I'm not surprised about Lena, and also wouldn't be surprised if like literally everybody also is doing that. You know, I feel like I've heard of other people. I just can't think of any right now.
What about you, Dave?
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I just want to say one thing. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, most of my professional career, I really didn't get jobs I applied for. And I stay with a job, but I mostly got them from people in my HBCU network. And if it wasn't from somebody directly from Howard, it would be like a friend of a friend from Howard. That's all.
Oh yeah, I definitely
understand. I definitely second that. You know, that's what I say. Even though some stuff might not be official, you know, I feel like the networks are there. So like even when I think about my sister, one part that I mentioned before, Asha Kamali, and then she has another partner, Dana Gitta, she works with. You know, they came together on the early end of like the whole webisodes. One from FAM, one from Spelman, other from Howard, and put together a nice movement that helped to birth a lot of the stuff that, you know, is kind of out there now, just helping to kind of like open ways. So I feel like the networks are there. And it's just a matter of, you know, folks coming together and maybe making it more official in certain kind of ways, to just kind of to nurture it. That's why I think, you know, the program that Asha had going on with Howard was really dope. She had cast coming back from like, you know, William and Morris talking, you know, and just different folks from different agencies on, you know, from the industry standard, and the cast coming, you know, on the way to the independent side, you know. I think it was a dope experience, and something like that I could see being a good thing to be rebirthed, like homecoming season, like pretty much HBCU to HBCU, honestly.
Now, Merawi, you talked about how you had to go to Townsend and some of the assistance you needed with making Residue. What is some of the contributions HBCUs can do that can help with like filmmaking, especially with Black filmmaking? Because for those that don't know, near Baltimore and Howard is not close. So the fact that you had to make that trek and go back and forth, I don't even want to think about it, definitely during traffic.
No. Fortunately, we didn't. Actually, it was some dedicated individuals from Towson who made that trek to us every day. I mean, unbelievably, you know. But that's kind of what I'm saying is like this type of opportunity doesn't come around the city often enough, and so even students from Towson were like, "Yo, like, you know, it's rare that I'll get a chance to work with this type of equipment and this type of production." So they were really kind of just coming literally every day, you know what I mean? And the same from Howard. It was just like film students in the area were like, oh, I heard, oh, it's a film, you know, it's a feature film being shot. You know, it's not a union project, it's not a Hollywood, you know, massive production that we would never be able to get in on, or if we were, we would just be PAs, you know what I mean? It was I think, a highly attractive proposition, you know what I mean? And so I think that like, the idea, if we could talk about like what HBCU students could do, is to shoot feature films. You know what I'm saying? Like as a thesis film, you know, to embark on that project. Which, you know, I was still in film school while I was doing it. It wasn't a film project, but you know, it was my own personal thesis. You know what I mean? And I think that like the more students kind of break out of this kind of fear-based approach to filmmaking that we're taught, which is you can't embark on a feature without this much money. You can't embark on this if you don't have this many drafts. You know what I'm saying? Like the more rules they break in the pursuit of like a feature film for the experience of it, you know, whether it comes out good or bad, you know, I think that's the best way that like, you know, Black film students, you know, in the area can really help, you know, this whole, you know, filmmaking community that we're talking about, you know what I mean? Hopefully the stories are good, but even if they're not, you know what I'm saying, just for the experience of it, you know, to attempt it, you know, I think that's the best value. I mean, to me, many great things have come out of this film, but like the best thing about it was the process of making it. You know what I mean? I feel very selfish in saying that like the film really, if we talk about who it benefited, I can only guarantee you that it was me and like, you know, maybe hopefully the other people who helped to bring it to life, because the process of making it is such an illuminating and growthful process, you know what I mean? So I wish that for all film students, you know, especially at Howard.
Yeah, Ogechi, you kind of mentioned that your jobs came from someone at the HBCU and I got triggered because that's been my postgraduate life definitely also too. So that's some real truth. Is there any other contributions you can think that an HBCU can help in filmmaking and Black filmmaking?
Whenever, you know, a young person tells me that they're thinking about Howard and another school, I always tell them Howard. I'm biased, but it's real. Like that network, it's global. It's a global network.
I agree. Dave, you add anything to that?
I'd just say, you know, like, yeah, just really just that underground network, you know, like I feel like that's really it with the HBCUs. Like a lot of this project has been just self-funded. You know, I had a few homies, you know, pitched in some bread, you know, and helped me on the road. But, you know, part of the tour I was doing was on a motorcycle. And I was going from Chicago down to Memphis. And I knew I had to stop in St. Louis and I didn't have a spot to stay at. And I just threw up on Facebook, and one of the homies from Howard that I hadn't seen probably since Howard, you know what I'm saying, like some 10, 15 years before, was like, yo, you can stay at my crib. It's cool, you know. So those kind of moments I feel like are jewels. And like I say, you know, like that the program that Asha Kamali had going on, I feel like is really dope program, that Howard program. Like that's really the way that folks can get in tune, and the conversations can happen amongst filmmakers. And cats just want to work, you know, because sometimes somebody just needs to know how somebody did a thing, and they can say, oh, okay, if I don't need all this equipment, what equipment do I need? And just to be able to give a big breakdown of what's had, and you know, just move forward. I feel like that's a interesting way to just help people kind of get on their own initiative, because it doesn't take everything that you know has been told and pushed to do these things.
Yeah, when you think about the LA Rebellion and it started at UCLA, I can't help but to think, like, is there a way that can happen at a HBCU, or is it already happening? And Mari, I gotta tag you because I know you're a child of that movement. Is there a way that it existing at a HBCU, or it can? Do we have the infrastructure for that to exist?
Well, I mean, the LA Rebellion was a response to like a totally racist and repressive kind of university, you know, environment. And those certainly still exist, you know what I mean? And but I think that like what I witnessed, you know, like SC and like at Howard are these pockets of like, you know, filmmakers who, you know, seem intent on like trying something new and different. But I think it certainly is possible. I think it just kind of requires I don't know, man. I sometimes feel like young, like my peers, you know, for example, are often concerned with, you know, I would say are often not very critical of, you know, the types of mainstream filmmaking. You know, like I feel like often, like, you know, a lot of my peers are really just like trying to get a job in Hollywood, you know, just to put it point blank simply, you know. And I think that like, if we talk about like the LA Rebellion specifically, you know, a job in Hollywood was like a foreclosed possibility. You know, that wasn't even the conversation. The conversation was like, you know, what's the Black aesthetic? You know what I mean? Like, what type of films are we making, you know, that are the best ways and vehicles for our stories as Black people. Especially when we know that like everything Hollywood has ever done about Black people has been totally racist and, you know what I mean, destructive towards Black people. How do we reverse that? You know, how do we do something that's restorative? I think that like I think there are small pockets similar to that, you know what I mean, around the country. I don't know if they're necessarily taking place in film schools. You know what I mean? I think a lot of times film schools become a place where people are kind of indoctrinated, you know what I mean, nowadays, into the mainstream in a really uncritical way. And I think that any kind of knee-jerk, you know, resistant kind of, you know, instincts they might have had are being kind of, you know, smoothed out. You know, film schools kind of smooth the edges. You know, they blunt the teeth. You know what I'm saying, so to speak. And that was the case at SC. Like, residue for me was like something that I had to do in order to kind of regain what I felt I had lost, you know, while a film student. So I think that the real like revolutionary kind of Black filmmaking work is being done outside of the film school space.
Ogechi, real quick, because you teaching at Bowie State. Do you see that amongst your students? Any kind of vibe of that can kind of like uprise or anything like that?
A little bit like in individual students, you know, but I'm going to have to agree with Merawi on this one. Yeah, it's not, you know, you look at what happened, look what just happened. You know, we've had like this 10-year conversation, maybe longer, about representation in Hollywood. And, you know, finally we start to reap the fruits of that push. And that's how, you know, Black Panther and Chad and all those people got through representation and da-da-da-da. But it's like, okay, now Hollywood's like, okay, we know they're thirsty for representation. So now they just pumped out like 5 slave movies this year, like, you know, about 5 or 6 cop killing movies this year. And I ain't no shade, but here's my whole thing. What did the guy, Gil Scott here, the revolution will not be televised? I just really don't know how you would prepare someone to work in the Hollywood industry and have them have like a militant, or I wouldn't even say militant, but just subversive Black mentality. How? That's all.
How, Sway? How?
Dave?
I feel you 100% Ogechi. You know, that's real, you know, like, that's why I just keep going, you know, back to like that mentality, you know, it's something in it when we rely on ourselves, right? And the more that we can, I feel like that gives us that room to say what it is that we want to say and do the things that you know that we want to do. And sometimes it's creating safe space for cats to, you know, to do what it is that folks know need to be done, but might not be able to do themselves in the midst of that moment for whatever position they might have. You know, at their work, maybe they can't say what they really want to say or put out the type of movie that they necessarily want to do. So sometimes, you know, you just got to give a little elbow room to somebody else that might not have that same constraint as you. And I think that, you know, I think that we find that in different pockets, and just how we move to do the things that we need to do. And in terms of like that LA rebellion vibe, I feel like what we're seeing in a lot of spaces with like Black film is a response to that, right? Like it's a rebirth, it's a continuation, it's a response to it was that generation that gave us that elbow room to say, okay, now we've done this in this space, you know what I'm saying? So now we got proof of concept, you know you can do it, you know what I'm saying? So now next generation, what y'all gonna do? Y'all need to get to this on a double time, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like we behind it in the double time a little bit, but I feel like we catching up, you know what I'm saying?
I just want to add something to that. You know, I just feel like, okay, the LA rebellion, you know, what Merawi said, it was in response to a racist environment. Those students looked at each other, talked amongst themselves, and they made a decision. They didn't complain about it. They didn't run to Twitter and explain it to 500 million strangers. They looked at each other, had a conversation, made a decision, and it was just action and straight out from there. So that's all I have to say about that. You know, I want us as a people, like, be it bigger HBCU, I want us as a people to get back to that place. Like, I felt that, like, growing up in the 90s, like, we could all look at something and, like, have a standpoint on it, but it wasn't a public thing. But now everybody, because of the whole clout situation, because of the likes and the shares and the social media, everybody, whenever they think they get a good idea, they run to social media. That's why we're going to stay stuck, because, you know, when you put your ideas out there, it's just out there and anybody can create a response to get you hooked in emotionally to the next crisis or what have you. But we got to get back as a people to that place where we could just, like, look at it and be like, okay, and then make moves, you know. But I don't know, like, I don't know how we would get back to that. I don't know how.
I mean, I think it's as simple as all of us looking at the fact that while, like, the LA Rebellion was like a response to a specific institution, like, we lit that was a microcosm of what we all existing in on the day to day, you know. So, like, the recognition isn't necessarily from one place to space, but it's just like, yo, like, we all in this. You know what I'm saying? Like, ain't nothing changed. Like, okay, I was in that one place in one space, but man, like, we need to Voltron link up across this nation for real, because if we don't, like, we moving on an agenda that's only going to have us, you know, stepping backwards and not moving forward. Because, you know, we can play this individual game as much as, you know, and as often as we want, you know, and it takes, you know, I feel like one person that is, like, real trill in the philosophical space is Nelly Fuller, and I don't think he gets enough credit. For somebody that Francis Cress Welsing looked to. But he, you know, he was just like United Independent Front. You know, everybody's on their individual thing, doing what it is that you need to do. But we can't overlook the fact that we're all in this together, you know, and we got to look around to see who it is that's doing the same things that we're doing, or that's creating the vibe that we want to see in the world, and making sure that we link up with them, you know, just on the massive scale.
Yeah. And I know we kind of come into time, so I want to leave everybody, you know, with a final question, because Ogechi, you really brought up about how we kind of throw out ideas, and it seems like people are looking for that emotional reaction, and to speak plainly, but not really wanting to, like, do the work. It can be definitely perceived as that, because as Merawi mentioned, he had to do some work to get that film done, hence why he enjoyed the process now. But I'm pretty sure in that moment, that was work. If any of you, all three of you, and Dave, I want to have you start off. If you can make, produce, write, direct a film, anything related to HBCU film, what would that be?
Something probably addressing, like, kind of like the other side of HBCU experience, right? Because I feel like there's the day-to-day experience of it, and then there's also the institution experience of it. And I don't know that enough of the institution experience gets highlighted enough in the context of like what it looks like post grad life. I know somebody that said, you know, like, you love it till you get out, and then it takes you a few years to love it again, right? And I think there's something to say about that experience on the HBCU side, and just the fullness of conversation, in that is more to it than just Black people and black spaces, right? Because there's also Black thought, ideology, and forward motion. Yes, so something probably along those lines.
Ogechi?
I mean, there's so many things. I love School Days. It was so fun. It's old now. You know, we need another one. What would I do with an HBCU? I can't even think, because, like, I'm, like, you know, neck deep in a documentary right now. So I can't answer that question. I don't know, you know, but, you know, I'm happy to be part of this conversation, you know, and this is about HBCUs, but, you know, I just don't know. I don't know.
That's real. Merawi, what about you, sir?
Man, I'd probably make a movie about student debt, you know what I'm saying? Student loan, how debilitating that is. You know what I mean? HBCU or not, you know. Yeah, horror film, exactly. You know, because and I'm super interested in the folks who who you know, what type of resistance models there are to that, you know. I don't know, man. HBCU or not, man, you really just kind of conscripting a whole generation to just indentured servitude, you know. And I'm real interested in really blowing that whole thing up, and so yeah, I'd make a film about that, documentary or maybe a narrative, you know what I mean? And if you do it at HBCU, you know, and just kind of wonder why it's so bad there, to inevitably point to the larger system at hand anyway, you know, because you know all our pressures are kind of, you know, much worse versions than, you know, but are reflective of the larger society. So, you know, I would put the camera there prior to start.
Yeah, I would definitely like to see a film. And Dave, you kind of talked about that, about post HBCU life, because it is the gift that keeps on giving. And I think that's the part that people don't necessarily get a chance to see on screen. Is about the love or the connection that you have, even in the vibe in this digital space right here, of how we all came together, of understanding the importance of having that conversation. Because I had binged Different World again, and I forgot how broke Dwayne and Whitley was after college. And it was resonated with me now more so it was when I was a kid, because I was like, yo, we need more of that post kind of out there, and that love and that connection, like the family that you feel. Because I don't know about some of you, but I know I've met people post Howard, in my experience, that I'm closer with, and I didn't even know them in undergrad. But it's just that vibe you feel. Or someone from another HBC, one of my closest friends went to FAM, and I didn't go to FAM, so I would definitely like to see more of that. Thank you all for coming and having this discussion about the importance of Black filmmaking. Before we go, I just want to ask each of you real quick, is there anything that anybody wants to leave us with for someone to check? If you have the site you want to blow up, or if you got a direction you want us to go to. Merawi, I'll start with you. Is there any direction you want us to go to or look out for that you have working on, or a friend or associate?
Yeah, my sister Angel Christie Williams, she got a film called Really Love that was supposed to launch this year, but you know, COVID. She was supposed to premiere at South by, but COVID, that was like the first casualty of COVID. I think she may have had a little online release, but it's a film that everybody should look out for, based in Baltimore. I'm excited to see it. It's called Really Love. Check that joint out. My other sister, Sophia Nali Allison, got a film on Netflix. It's a short documentary. It's an incredible story. It's called "The Song for Tasha Harlins," who was killed by the Korean in that bodega by that Korean woman. I forget her name, but the whole part of the things that kicked off the whole riots in LA in the 90s, 92, 90, yeah. But she created an incredible short film about Latasha that I encourage everybody to watch. It's on Netflix, and in fact, it goes hand in hand with Residue, because the way that she did it is like a total resurrection. You know what I'm saying? That's the one word I would use to kind of describe that project.
Okay, Ogechi.
Definitely check out sabirafilmfest.org. We just completed our November programming. We awarded 3 categories: feature, documentary, narrative or feature short, and children's film. So our award winners were Yemen Ya, Spirit of the African Heart of Brazil, narrated by Alice Walker, by Donna Roberts, Yari Sakatelli, Bentley Brown, Revolution from Afar, about the South Sudanese immigrants that were all artists. So you can check it out. You can see some of the, you can't see the films on our website. They're part of our portal, but, follow our YouTube, go there. You can get updates. We're going to be working with those filmmakers in the future. So near future, and just like promoting them and their work. So definitely check out sabirafilmfest.org. Oh yeah, my sister. Oh, forgot. My actual sister. She won People's Choice for a short called MCM. So she won our People's Choice Award, and my sister is dope. So her name is Chieke, and her film is #MCM. And so you can see all that on our site.
Thank you. Dave?
That's dope. I just say check out my homie Rawson Smith. He's doing some real dope stuff on the documentary side of things. Also Milani Douglas and Family Arts Museum, real dope partner with me on this project, giving me shelter over the last couple of years and just residency to give me space to work on this project. So check out what she's got going on with this reclamation project with the Family Arts Museum.
Very good, very good. Thank you all for joining. I appreciate your time. Like quote the great Jay-Z, you could have been anywhere in the world, but you chose to be here. So thank you for this discussion. Appreciate you. Continuous blessings on all of your journey, on all of your Black journeys.
Right.
Right. I'm Jhall. This is AURN Online. Thank you very much.